Go. We are live. This is Pitchdeck Asia, powered by Asia Tech Podcast. My name is Graham Brown. We're on a tour of the startup ecosystem of Asia, talking to the unsung heroes. Who are the people that support the startup founders out there in Asia? So we're talking to accelerators, programs, funds. And we're here today in the headquarters of ImpacTech in Singapore, joined by two familiar faces, Kineret and Yoav. I'd say welcome to the show, even though we're sitting in your space. Thank you so much for making space for us this morning. It's great to have you here. So, familiar faces, let's talk about you guys and also ImpacTech. So maybe we can start just with a welcome first. Kineret, good to see you again.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you.
You've been traveling a lot?
Lately, yes.
Yeah, you had a bit of a run on countries in the last couple of weeks, right? Where did you
Yes.
go?
I was in Indonesia with a meeting at the ASEAN headquarters
Yeah.
because ImpacTech was chosen as the Singaporean incubator to participate in this ASEAN project for incubators from around the region. So we're
Right.
the Singaporean representative.
So you're in Jakarta?
Yes.
I mean, that alone is like a day to get across the city, isn't it? And then a
Yeah,
day
it's
to get
like
back.
you're there for the day, but it's like a whole month.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you did Jakarta, you're based here in Singapore.
Yes.
You've also got outreach in Japan,
Yes.
Thailand,
I was also in Israel.
and Israel.
Yeah.
And you're both from Israel. We'll talk a little bit about your background as
Yes.
well. A familiar
Oh,
face.
and on Friday I'm going to New York.
New York.
Yeah, but that's for holiday.
Okay, time off.
Yeah.
All right, Kineret, thank you. Yoav, yourself, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got an interesting background as well. How long have you been in Singapore?
So I arrived to Singapore 11 years ago.
Yeah.
I arrived actually from one of the corporates, international corporates. However, soon after, I started to be also entrepreneur. And along with Kineret, we founded several companies. And this is this is where the journey started that brought us to ImpacTech.
Right. So you have founded and exited companies together before, so you have that working relationship in history. And then you set up the accelerator here. Tell us a little bit about your corporate life, your previous life. What were you doing?
So I always combine two things, which is technology, innovation, along with business. I felt very comfortable in this domain. And I think all the knowledge that I gained in the corporate world also helped me in the entrepreneurial life. This is why really we think that a lot of good startups actually came from people that worked or are working in corporates.
Absolutely. That is our philosophy here. We love the corporate dropouts. I mean, we all know about the college dropouts, right? You know, the 19, 20-year-old kids, Stanford, pair of shorts, you know, they come out with a computer engineering degree or something. But there's this whole generation now of people with 15, 20 years experience in corporates. They know what's broken. Sometimes they have a little bit of capital, but they have a network as well. They're not necessarily going to change the whole world, but they're just focused on maybe looking at this is broken in HR, or this is broken in non-profits, or this is broken in marketing. And they just focus on fixing that. So do you think that's a particularly strong sector here in Singapore?
I think in general, someone who is coming from a corporate occasionally identified a real problem, a meaningful problem, and he know the problem in depth. And every good startup starts with a problem. But if you come from really knowing the problem in depth, your chances to find a good solution to it is quite high.
Yeah.
So this is why we see, along with the young entrepreneurs that are fresh graduate, we see great entrepreneurs that are coming from the corporates.
Yeah, excellent. Good. And before we start talking about ImpacTech, I want to talk about you two as well. So you're both Israeli. And, you know, if nobody would have known, they would soon find out, sitting before this conversation that we're having now, it doesn't take long to get into an in-depth discussion with an Israeli, it seems. Like 5 minutes, you're already straight to the main point, and you're talking about the big issues. Is that a very Israeli thing? You know, I mean, I'm very much used to living in Asia, where things are very much consensual, and maybe I have to get to know you a little bit better first before we start going into the more controversial topics. Tell us a little bit about what we need to know, just so people don't misunderstand you when they're actually talking to you.
Yeah, in Israel, everybody in 2 minutes, they always tell you exactly what they think,
Right.
what you should do, what you're doing wrong in any aspect. If you're
Yeah.
with your, just an example, if you're walking with your baby along the street, no one knows you, they will just come and tell you, no, this is what you should put a hat, wear the socks, why isn't she eating, things like that. So in every aspect, in politics, it takes I
Right.
think less than 1 minute, and all the room will start to,
Right.
engage.
Yeah, there must be some really heated
And we
discussion.
use our hands a lot and very verbal
yeah.
and
Yeah.
the body.
Is that a good thing in the context of startups? Especially here in Asia, like we're a bit more. Say we. I mean, we've all lived in Asia for many years between us, right? And you must have learned to adapt and maybe moderate your behavior a little bit. In the world of startups, is that a good quality?
I think yes. In the startup world, you need to be very direct in what you want. In the startup world, also, the entrepreneur is expected not to be shy, but ask for things that he needs,
Yeah.
and because he have lack of resources. Usually, he do not have a lot of money, do not have a lot of things to give. But in general, people are really willing to give if you just ask. So part of the journey with good entrepreneurs, at least here, is we really encourage them to take the Israeli way, be direct, and just ask.
Yeah.
And usually the answer is yes.
Yeah. And it's not easy to ask if you've been trained for 15 years at school not
Exactly.
to ask, right? Do you find this an issue with young entrepreneurs here in Singapore, in Asia in particularly, that my son's in an Asian school, was in an Asian school until recently, and, they're trained in a very passive way to onboard and learn information. Yet maybe for you, when you grew up at school, that you were maybe trained to shout and ask questions and challenge things and so on. Yet, so when you come out and you've got a great idea as a young entrepreneur, and then you're out there in the wild pitching, you're not naturally trained to ask. So how do you sort of overcome that? How do you sort of instill that with young entrepreneurs here
I think
in Asia?
you said good, the word challenge. So first of all, we always try to, sort of teach people, even our kids, that don't take anything for granted. So ask questions all the time. If someone tells you no, it not possible or cannot, why? Why cannot? So really try to, get the real answers and try to find solutions. But again, as being, you said, if to be Israeli is good, you need to really adapt to the Asian culture. You can't be Israeli in Asia. It will never work.
Yeah.
You need to take some of the good things, but do it in the Asian way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've spoken before, and obviously, Yoav, we just sat and had a chat before we went on air now. And it was a really good chat. We went quite deep, and within 10 minutes, you're already telling me this is what I should do with my business. And I'm listening and thinking, I really am enjoying this discussion because I'm hearing some like really strong positive feedback as well. And I need to hear that, and you need to be challenged. Yet, maybe if I was from a different background, I'd maybe take it the wrong way. So I think we all have to adapt a little bit to each other in this culture as well. Maybe we can talk a little bit about your backgrounds as well, in your startup entrepreneurial background. And in particular, you talk about going out and hearing a no and being rejected. And that's hard, isn't it? I mean, that's the reality of startup life. How many times did you get rejected in your life as an entrepreneur?
Can't even.
Give us a number.
Endless times.
Endless.
Tell us a little bit about that, because we want to know that you're of this world.
Well,
so founders are, you get it. You hear my pain.
I think it's all about how you take a no. If you just take no as no, it's fine. But sometimes you take no as my business is no good, I'm not good, I'm completely failure. So this is wrong. But if you just take no as a simple no, and as Kineret mentioned, dive in. Why not? As simple as that, it's much easier.
Yeah.
I think for us also in the beginning, or like every entrepreneur, you tend to take this no and create stories around it. But this is part of what we educate the young generation of entrepreneur.
Yeah.
No is just a no.
No, and that's just one way to get to a yes eventually. Right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's numbers, isn't it? You're just going to keep moving forward. So you have a successful career, both of you, as startup entrepreneurs and corporate as well. Before that, you've had exits, and then you started ImpacTech. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of that conversation. Where did it happen? Who pitched who the idea? Who came up with the idea, and how did it form? Let's go way back to, over the dinner table or over a beer, however it happened, over a coffee. Where were you when you came up with the idea?
I'll let you start, and then of course, I will probably need
Correct
to
him.
correct him. Yes. Let's see what he remembers.
Okay. All right, Yoav.
No, but the journey is really after being entrepreneur here, we started to understand what we believe entrepreneurs need here in order to succeed. And it's all the things that we lacked when we were entrepreneur and the ecosystem was just in the infancy. So we thought, okay, I wish we had this and that. And according to this, we built the program. Actually, we had some, the original name of the accelerator, we thought to create a flywheel.
But
Flywheel.
after the minute he said that, I said no.
Oh, so it was his idea and you
Yeah.
overruled it.
Flywheel was no.
Okay.
And then it came this is the impact side. It came out of the philosophy that we believe we live in a very unique time in the human race, which individuals, due to the accessibility and affordability of technology, can create meaningful impact on areas which in the past only corporates and government dealt with, such as energy, healthcare, social inequality, education, etc. So we combine together our belief to help and empower startups, along with specifically focus on the ones who create positive impact on us as a society.
Very interesting.
When we started our journey in Singapore, there was no ecosystem, nothing. You didn't, no co-working spaces, no, a lot of VCs. I didn't even know what it was.
When was that?
2009.
All right. Okay.
There was nothing here.
It's a different world.
Different world.
Yeah.
So along the way, everything we did on our own. Everything, learned everything by ourselves. So
What was it like then back in 2009, when there weren't co-working spaces, when you were having conversations with people about what you were trying to do, when, there weren't so many startup events, and even like FailCon hadn't started yet, when Golden Gate set up here. So that whole idea about what you were doing more was like an alternative lifestyle, I guess, for some people to view what you were doing. How was it back then? So, here in 2019, 10 years on, it's a lot easier, isn't it? I mean, obviously you have ImpacTech, there's a lot of support here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But back then, it must have been a
no,
heck of a lot harder.
we didn't even have smartphones.
Okay.
Nothing was online.
Nokia.
Nothing. Yeah. So very, very different.
Yeah.
I think people thought because also I sort of left the corporate to do this crazy food delivery thing. So people thought, "What, you crazy? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna do this?" There was, nothing really supporting you at that time. So.
How did you answer that when people said Kineret?
Oh, for me, it's just I'll show them.
Okay. Was that energy, motivation for you?
Yeah, it's always motivation for me when
Right.
someone tells me, I'll show him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's a good motivation as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got people to prove wrong.
Yes.
And back then as well, you left a successful career, and that was a risk, wasn't it? And
Yes, a financial risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also Singapore. Also yesterday it was the first. It's #1 city, the most expensive city in the world. So
Right.
yes.
yeah, and family, everything. So
Mhm.
you were taking a risk.
Yes.
So it's not something that you take on lightly as a reckless risk. Maybe you can when you're younger. Just let's see what happens, and
Because of this reckless risk, then you need to work harder
yeah.
to prove that it's not going to be a reckless risk.
Okay, so there's a lot of people out there now in the startup ecosystem. Why do they need, for example, an accelerator or an ecosystem like ImpacTech, that focus specifically on startups with social impact? Why is that necessary? Why can't I just go to any other accelerator?
I think that as an entrepreneur, you need and expected to know many things and to master a lot of skills. However, you don't have the resources to buy those skills. So one of the best and most effective way proven in the world is to join a program such as incubator or accelerator, where you get those skills in a very fast and effective way. In addition, I think compared to academy, all the skills that we teach here and provide you are very, very practical. It's something that immediately you can apply in your startup. In addition, also, you are surrounded by a like-minded entrepreneur, and we believe the power of the community is crucial for your success. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you're surrounded with bankers and lawyers and insurance people, I'm not sure they will give you the right support.
Right. There'd be like the conversation, like, are you crazy? Why are you doing this? Why don't you just get a career and
Exactly.
pay your mortgage, right?
So you're surrounded with the right environment, surrounded by the right content and people that can
How
help you.
important is that? I think this is underrated, isn't it? Surrounding yourself with the right people that if you're a startup founder, often, and I wonder as well, you can tell me, do startup founders come here alone, or do they come as a team already made? So, do they come here because, maybe you can help them connect with other startup founders as well? How much of that is what you do?
Well, in general, in Asia, to be entrepreneur is less socially accepted. So all their existing surrounding is not necessarily supporting them. Even their parents, they can pretend, oh, it's great that you're having your startup, but back in their mind, they want you to work in the bank.
Yeah.
And they think, okay, they play with this crazy stuff for 1 year and go back to,
get out of your system and then come back to the real world, right?
So really isolate them in the right environment is part of the success. And they know that. And they know that this is why they feel so at home when they join a program. And when they join a program, it's not only, okay, we are here for 4 months. The doors are always open. So they are part of a community. And it's forever valuable for them.
Yeah. What sort of stage are startups when they come through the door, that first, before they even join the program? Where do they come from? What kind of backgrounds? And what kind of conversations usually take place in the first interactions with you?
Well, you see, I think 3 groups of entrepreneurs. The fresh graduates, really that came with certain vision, mission, have something in mind, very, very unrefined. The second group is, as we mentioned in the beginning, the corporates one that worked already 10, 20 years in the corporate, etc. And they are also the serial entrepreneurs. The ones who already did a startup, maybe succeeded, maybe failed, and doing the next one, and they value the power of the community. So although they're quite strong, they have a lot of knowledge and experience, but still they want to belong to something, to some community, and also get updated with the latest material or content that we can provide.
Do they? I mean, what sort of stage do they come to you? Are they sort of at idea stage?
Yeah, mostly a lot. No, a lot come with idea, and a lot come with something.
Right.
They have
MVP. Okay.
Maybe something a bit more.
What's the sweet spot where you'd want to start working with them? Is there a sort of an optimum stage where you say
it depends. It can be an idea,
right,
but the team is really good, so why not? It can be excellent idea, but team not so good. So it really depends.
So let's talk about some of the ideas that have come through the door then. And also, I know sometimes it's like choosing between your children, like who you're going to talk about now, but just give us some flavor of some of the, just recently who's come onto ImpacTech, some of the people in your batch who I guess different questions I want to ask you, like give us some examples of who's come in, who has really surprised you. So, maybe they were the sleeper hit, if you like, the ones that you thought, I'm not sure about these guys, but they really, they turned out a great result, or they surprised you in terms of what they were capable of doing. We have our own biases, right? Naturally. And maybe some that you thought, wow, these guys they're really trying to do something big here, like a really big mission impact on society as well. So just throw it out there. Let's start. Who have you had recently on the program?
I think before we go into maybe give specific examples, I think you easily can distinguish between the teams who come with the concept of I play to win compared to I play to play. The ones who really start a startup with the full intention to create a success story compared to the ones who start a startup because it's a bit of trendy, maybe they receive some government grant, maybe their friends are doing it. And it's really fun to work with the ones who are really coming to play to win. And also, they are likely to succeed.
Yeah. How do you know that when they come through the door that they're here to win? What are I know it doesn't say it on their CV, right? I'm here to win. Well, what are the telltale signs?
Well, if someone, the first question that he asks is how I raise money and how can you help me raise money, he's not playing to win because he's not aiming to create value. I mean, if his target is money, maybe not the right direction to start. The first thing in entrepreneur is how can I create the maximum value to someone?
Yeah.
And the rest will follow, money, success, and impact as well.
That's great advice, because I imagine startup founders may come here thinking that's the right question to ask, is like, how can you help me raise money? Where, you know, if they were to watch this interview as well, they would know that that's not necessarily the best question to ask off the bat. Better question is to start, you know, how can I solve this problem? How can you help me solve this problem of creating some kind of impact, right? So, and obviously money is part of that, but it's not the goal, right? Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that insight as well.
I can tell you now we also have operation in Tokyo, and we're just now we're starting our program in April, and we have now 11 startups, and we interviewed a lot, about 30 something, and none of them really asked, okay, how can you help me raise money? This was one of the last questions that they, how can I grow my company globally? How can I need mass production. I need help in this. And the funding always came last.
Yeah.
So it was very, changing.
Yeah, that's good.
Something new for us.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So in that Tokyo batch, without sort of any kind of preference, who was the first one to come to you that you accepted?
A toothbrush?
Who are those guys?
It's a girl. It's the only female entrepreneur we have out of the 11 startups.
Japanese,
and she created this for kids. If you have young kids, you know that they hate brushing their teeth.
Right.
It's like a nightmare every evening. So you put this thing on any toothbrush, and immediately it's a game for them with an iPad or iPhone or any smartphone, and they can see exactly how they brush their teeth, where they need to do it a bit more, clean better, and it's a game for them, and they love it. And she started selling, and she sold everything, and now she wants to do mass production, and yeah, it's really cute, and she also wants to do it for adults in the future.
right?
So
With something like that, when somebody comes through the door and they say, I want to make this toothbrush, it's very niche, isn't it? And it's very specific. I mean, we can all identify with it. But yet, when you look at something like that, how do you know that that's the right person? They may just have picked, like you say, they're here to play, right?
well, first of all, I always ask them, is this your full-time job?
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
What happens if they say no? It's a question mark.
No, it's not a question mark, because when I started as an entrepreneur, I also had a full-time job. When people say, no, it's not my full-time job, of course you need to assess and see what,
It's more, you need more data to understand a little bit about.
It's usually about the person.
Yeah. Okay.
But for her, it's her full-time job, and you can see how passionate she is about this, and how she's... You just see the person. Right.
So what did you see? I mean, I guess that's because you guys have both got a lot of experience, you make a lot of decisions based on your previous experience and patterns. You see patterns of behavior and personality types, and you get very good at making snap decisions, right? And also back it up with a bit of data, and that's why you work as, a team as well yourself. One of you is probably better at analytical, one is probably more better. You know how it works in these relationships. Now, when you have a founder come in and they're wanting to build a toothbrush, for example, how do you know that the why behind that is correct or right, or what you're looking for? Why is this person the right person to do this, right? They may just think, yeah, I'm really passionate about this toothbrush, but if it doesn't work out, I'll go and do something else.
It comes from their own personal story. So it's personal issues she had at home with her kids.
Right.
So it usually starts with that.
Yeah.
And then, it's something that really is, they're really passionate about this because it's a real problem for her.
Yeah.
I think that entrepreneurs that come to us with an idea, and initially our reaction is, what? Or we start to doubt his idea, doubt ourselves, and work hard to get it, it means there is something in it. Because if you look at any good ideas in the when the idea was pitched first, it sounds ridiculous and crazy. And you can mention everything. For example, Airbnb. If someone would tell you 10 years ago that you will sleep on someone else's couch and some other place, it's a crazy idea. This is a magic of creating a great startup. So actually you disrupt the common sense, and you make the other side doubt.
Yeah.
This is where
Yeah.
the magic happens, and we're looking for it. If startup, after 2 minutes, I fully understand and get it, I said, well, maybe it's not so special. So
Yeah.
good reaction to a startup in the beginning is what, and after 5 minutes, get it.
Yeah. This is really interesting, this conversation. And I read Peter Thiel talking about this particular question. He asks startup founders, and he asks them, what is the one thing, or he calls it, what is the fundamental truth that people disagree with you on? So, for example, if somebody came through the door and they said, I think healthcare is too expensive. And everybody said, yeah, I agree with you. Or, I think education isn't working. People say, yeah, I agree with you. He's not interested in those guys. He's interested in the guys that go out there and say, I think this is broken or this can be done differently. And people say, nah, get out of here. No, it works. But he's there or she's there, knocking on doors, banging their head against the wall, like self-doubt, but keep going. So I'm really interested in that conversation that you have with founders when they say something to you and say, you're like, I'm not quite sure about this, but then eventually you come round to seeing it. So have you had any of those conversations recently with any of your batch or founders where people have come and you thought at first, I don't get that?
Yes, we have it. I can give you all kind of examples if it's related to, for example, to energy startups that people say, well, all the concept of the existing lithium battery is not efficient enough in related to drones or for medical devices, that people needs to have energy all the time and they are outside and they are not connected to sockets. And I would like to use new technologies such as hydrogen and others to provide this hydrogen. And they come with crazy portable battery made of hydrogen in the beginning. You say, what?
Right.
And then you start to get the philosophy behind it and get the technology that they want to apply. And even if it's an early stage, you start to get, hey, it's maybe a beginning of a certain revolution. So this is an example related to technology. And there are other startups related also to how to do business, to the innovation in operation or the business model. And again, you think, whoa, but things are working and this guy just want to tweak the business model and make the change. But then you understand that sometimes this is all the magic. It's changing a small tweak. It's like if you can get, for example, Amazon perfected or the innovation come in the operations side and the supply chain. They did not invent anything new, but what they did, they did and do great. Same as simple things like WhatsApp. There was SMS and MMS, but what they did is something really good with small tweaks. So sometimes the innovation come in the little details. So you also need to respect those.
Yeah, and you're in that business of maybe identifying talent which is not yet refined, isn't it? That you can help them tweak that. Maybe somebody comes and say, I'm working on this lithium battery and I've got this crazy idea, and you're like, okay, let's chat about this. What can this do? And maybe they don't see the operational side that you can bring in, or maybe open it to supply chain or some kind of innovation, but they just have that raw talent. That is why I think people need mentors, accelerators, because often startup founders are talented, but they don't have that kind of outside perspective. And people say, hang on a second, have you looked at this? Or maybe if you tweak this, because I understand that. I've had 20 years experience here, right? So, what are you looking for in their personalities and in the raw talent side when people walk through?
I think the most important thing is, like you said, people are very talented, but you want people that are willing to listen and learn and come with no ego, because this is a big problem that people, I know everything. I'm a tech person. I'm a genius. I know everything. And they're less willing to learn and listen to you and not less coachable.
Right,
And we need the ones that are willing to be coachable, willing to listen to you, to maybe make these small tweaks.
Well, let me put that back to you. Like, let's say you have a founder who's just got this amazing technology that could change something, and they know more than you in their mind,
Definitely.
and they're going to make this happen, right? And they're sitting here with you now, and you're like absolutely right about the coachability. And I hear so many investors say, like, are they going to take on board advice, even if it's small advice? Are they going to, even if they disagree, say, okay, I'll listen to it, I'll have a look, and I'll come back to you. No, off the bat, not listening. if they came with you, and sat down and said, this is going to be amazing. Look, we've done all this research. Look at the traction. Would you still consider it if they were uncoachable?
Good question. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It really depends on the people.
Right.
But if they're less coachable and they think they know everything, then I don't think they have a place here because we're here to help them. So if they knocked on the door in the first place, they came for a reason.
Yeah.
Like Yoav said, maybe they just came for funding. So, this is not what we do. If you came here for another reason, then, let's sit and talk and see how we can really help you.
Yeah. It's a great answer, I think.
I think our style here also is combination between mentorship and coaching. And mentorship is for us giving a lot from ourselves, from our experience, from advices and opening new options for them to consider, connecting them to things. While coaching is getting the answers from the entrepreneur himself by asking a set of questions and really, first of all, helping him set the goals and helping him define the problems and define the optional paths to move and evaluate those paths to choose the right path. So combination of coaching skills and mentorship, I think this is something we apply here. And this really helps also those entrepreneurs that occasionally believe that they know everything, but we help them actually get more from themselves by asking them the right questions and asking them to consider different paths of movement. And I think this is also part of our maybe unique approach to empower entrepreneurs.
You're learning as well, I'm assuming, because you're natural entrepreneurs and you are always on the learning curve at some point and going up, hopefully. What have you learned in building ImpacTech from that first conversation that you had when it was flywheel as an idea and where you are now? Because now you're in Thailand, Singapore, and Japan. So, it hasn't been a straight line. That is startup life. You are a startup in your own sort of world as well, aren't you? You're learning. And tell us a little bit about that journey. What do you know now about running a social impact accelerator that you didn't know day zero?
That it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a roller coaster. That the things that you start in the morning are totally different from what the day is going to look like at the end. And every day is different, and opportunities just come and go, and people come and go, and a lot of things. It's like you said, it's like a startup. So a lot of uncertainty, and you always need to work very hard. And
did you think when you started that accelerator, it'd be a lot more sort of gentle, gradual?
No, because I knew what it is to have a startup. So I knew it's not going to be gentle and it's going to be a rough road. But I would never have imagined 3 years ago when we started where we would be today and what we the countries where we are and what we're doing and the people that we met in the startup. So I can't imagine where I'll be a year from now. So
you said it's crazy and like every day is changing.
Yeah.
You must want to be in that environment because you both, like, over a stage of your life that you've had a few successes. You don't need to prove anything anymore in theory, and you're sure of yourselves. So why then choose to go back into that? For many people, is an uncomfortable environment. It's outside the comfort zone. You don't know who's going to walk through that door. You don't know, necessarily if you're going to be another 2 countries or 4 countries or 6 countries next year. Things change. And you're dealing with startup founders who themselves have their own things going on, right? So why do you put yourself in this situation?
For me, it's very simple. The uncomfortable is my comfortable.
Right.
I need, I need this.
Yeah.
If I'm like this, it's boring for me.
Boring.
Yeah, and then I don't do anything, and I'm depressed. And
Yeah.
I like this action.
I think that this is a really interesting conversation with startup founders, and there is that vibe of the startup founder. I mean, I feel it for sure that, I've lived on tropical islands and done all that, and it gets old. It gets quite boring. And, that being around people who have that creativity and can challenge you, You know, and that's what it's about for me, I think. And you know, hearing that from you, it's like, yeah, this is the curse and the blessing of the entrepreneur, right?
But I think you'll see in most of the entrepreneurs around the world, once they started this journey, it never ends, because it's being addicted to create something, to bring value and to create something from scratch. Because entrepreneur is the only one that you cannot replace. I mean, let's take for example, I don't know, a building. You can replace the funding bank and the architect and the builders, but you cannot replace the founder. So this tech startup, without a founder, it would not exist. So it is really good feeling, this creation feeling, and it's become addicted. So you see what we call serial entrepreneurs that keep on creating companies, or entrepreneurs that decide to contribute to the ecosystem in different ways. They become angel investors, they work in VCs, they start accelerators and incubators, but they never leave this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Another thing in our specific environment, it's great to be in an environment that every day I meet great people, passionate people, smart people with great ideas. Well, whoever love or enjoy being with people, it's heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. They say, don't you, that you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, if you hang around with 5 people who are, you know, raising your game, you know, I mean, it's a great learning experience, isn't it? You know, I can come here, I can talk to you, you know, and learn about your journeys, your motivations as well. I come away from this conversation this morning and I think, wow, I've got to raise my game now. I feel like, you know, I've got to go out there and do something, take it to the next level, right? So, you know, that's motivating for us. And for you guys, having those people come through the door, those startup founders saying, I want to change something, you know, you call me crazy, but I can do this, right? That must really inspire and motivate you as well. So, okay, just a thought to hang in there with. Just so people understand about the mechanics of an accelerator. So those people who are interested in ImpacTech and want to come here and have that first conversation, there's a gap, isn't there, between where they are now and coming through the door and talking to you. So let's sort of help bridge that gap. First of all, help them understand how an accelerator works. So do you have an application program? Do you actually invest in any of the startups? And what happens to a startup after it's graduated from your accelerator? So talk about the mechanics of it first.
So there are 2 flavors of or I would say 3 flavors of the accelerator. One is accelerator that is initiated by corporates. So we have a corporate such as Singtel, Raise, Shell, and others that came to us, and we helped them on their behalf to execute their vision to accelerate startups that are in the area which they are interested, such as if it's a social tech, energy, etc. This is one flavor. The other flavor is the program that we initiate. Sometimes we initiate program with our general related to impactful startups, and sometimes we have a specific program, like we called CEO, to empower female entrepreneurs. And the third flavor is, I would say, one-on-one mentorship. So we could call it some kind of personal accelerator, which entrepreneurs come, usually the one who have some funding, and they actually receive our service, but one-on-one. A lot of them are actually from the corporate world. They came, they have an idea, they want to grow the startups, they have no idea how to do it, but they think that maybe joining a full group is less what they are seeking.
So do they come, I mean, in all of these cases, do they come and join a batch and you have like the traditional 3 months and the demo day?
The corporate, yeah, it's a batch. Also our own, I would say, initiative, the cohorts, the flavor number 2 that you have said, it's a batch. Number 3, no, it's individual.
Right,
It's,
so that could last as long as they need those services.
And the way to reach us is very simple. Just go to our website, impacttech.com, go to the contact, and that's it.
Well, you put
Very
the call
easy.
out there. We'll put details in the show notes as well. Is there any type of founder or areas you particularly want to encourage more of at the moment here in Singapore? And obviously, you know, Thailand and Japan as well. You know, certain solutions, certain verticals, certain types of background founders that you know are out there, but need maybe to...
We're looking for people that are solving, big problems, but in big scale. And we want people that think big and not small. Singapore is a great market, but it's a very small market. So if you're doing something in Singapore, from day one, think how you're going to do it in Southeast Asia, which is a very, very large region.
Right.
And you can create much more impact that way.
So when you say problems on a big scale, these are going to be big problems as well. You know, these are sort of global.
Yeah.
It touches, I mean, just so people understand what social impact really is, what could that be? Everything from healthcare to poverty to
Social
brushing your
inequality
teeth, for example.
to energy, which is environment, smart cities, everything. Today it's really a big, very wide umbrella.
Yeah.
There are three words that that whoever comes in the door we seek. It's innovation, technology, and impact. And when those three words come together, use technology in an innovative way to generate impact, this is what we like. As Kineret mentioned, also it needs to be, or we prefer to be not solving a very small problem, a niche problem for a specific village or specific group of people, but something that can be applied to big group of people or nations. A lot of time the entrepreneurs come and they believe that what they did is really just local solution, and along with the journey with us, actually we show them, hey, your solution is much bigger than you think yourself.
So I want to ask you one last question about this, because I'm sure it's on the minds of entrepreneurs who are listening, is that tell me about my startup idea and how it fits in here. Does it need to make money? Because it's social impact. I can create a massive social impact, but I'm not sure about the economics of my model. And I'm sure this is something going through, because there's always a bit of a payoff here, you know, finding that right balance. How do you address that?
No, I don't think there is a payoff. Actually, I think it's a myth. The practical thing is every startup needs to make money. If he cannot make money, the business model will not hold.
Right.
He will always be kind of a beggar, or we rely on donation or foundation or charities. So business model must be applied, and it's not less important than the impact. And we work with them actually to create a business model that can last and scale. Also, we believe that only when you have the business model that can make sense, you can approach further funding from investors, angels, etc. So I think we try to change the perception of people that the social tech is just doing impact or no profit. So this is something that we are changing. And now we have quite a lot of approaches from foundations and from all kind of charities that can you help those people that we invested in actually create a business model that can last and they can earn their own money and scale rather than coming back to us.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's great to get it out there, because I think it's so right as well, what you're doing. Obviously, you know, as they say, you can give a person a fish, but if you teach them to fish, they can, you know, that problem then can be solved on a massive scale, right? If they can raise funds, scale, get traction and so on, then, you know, they're not constantly asking for handouts and support from sometimes agencies or sometimes charities and so on. These guys can go and build it on their own, right, and grow. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your journey with us here today. I mean, it was really insightful and inspiring as well. So, Yoav and Kineret, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Best way, obviously, you said about the website as well, to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Are you open to people contacting you on LinkedIn as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
LinkedIn, everything, Facebook, all the social media.
What's the starting point for that? Because honestly, I know this sounds like a very basic thing, but especially like here in Singapore, people might be a bit afraid to reach out. Okay, those that are good at pitching and, you know, doing the hustle, they're good at that. But there are some people who think, you know, what do I do? You know, do I reach out and say, I watched this video, or do I say, can I meet for a coffee, or do I have to fill in a form? What works for you?
Everything works.
Coffee is always good, so yeah.
All right.
But anything works. Whatever is comfortable for the other side.
That's great to hear.
I think the journey of the entrepreneur starts when he's making the move from being out there in the dark to say, well, I'm reaching out to, if it's a program or something. I think it's great also from his perspective, prove to himself that I'm serious about it. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Great. What a place to end the conversation as well. Yoav and Kineret from ImpacTech. We'll put all the details in the show notes. Love what you guys are doing. And you know, the more we can help you in any way and get you out there and your startup.
And we love what you're doing. This is so much fun. You should do an Asian roadshow. Go to other countries and
have you been sitting in our conversations, listening in to us? It sounds like you have been. We're thinking alike here. So, but yeah, definitely, we're up for it. So Thailand, Japan.
Yeah,
How about
great.
it? All right,
Perfect.
cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, we're signing out. My name's Graham Brown. Thank you so much. If you are interested in connecting with these guys, then, as they say, either go through the website or reach out to them on LinkedIn and do the coffee thing. You know, don't be afraid.